Well, we're going to turn the page. The second leg of the Triple Crown, the Preakness Stakes, this Saturday at Pimlico. The Kentucky Derby, pretty much in the rearview mirror, at least for most of us, and we'll turn our attention to the Preakness and a field of 13. An interesting race, mostly new shooters. Very few players coming back from the Kentucky Derby. Best way to play the Preakness, as always, is to play it through NyraBets. If you're not a member, head on over to NyraBets.com. Bet 200, get 200. New member bonus. Use the promo code SPRING19. Want to remind people, come out and join us at Belmont Park. The weather's finally gotten nice. It reminds us just how beautiful it is at Belmont Park. The gates will open at 10 o'clock. 12-race card kicks off at noon. After those 12 races, the Preakness. So come out to Belmont Park. For more information, go to Nyra.com. Also, you're playing through NyraBets. Through the NyraBets app, only a 10% winner's bonus on the exacta in both the Black-Eyed Susan on Friday and the Preakness on Saturday. Also, the late pick 4 at Preakness on Saturday, a 3 million point hit and split through NyraBets. All that stuff can be found at NyraBets.com. The Preakness Field at 13. Let's take a look at the field slate. Now, the draw is really pretty much inconsequential in this race, considering they start the race effectively at the top of the stretch. You can see the 13 in there. The 13 entered. The number 4, Improbable, the favorite in the Derby at 4-1. He is the morning line favorite and very likely will be the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. In fact, the two of the horses, I should say, from the Derby are the first and second choices on the morning line. Let's take a look at that controversial final 3 ace of the Kentucky Derby. Obviously, Bodie Express, who comes back, was severely interfered with and actually had some run late in the stretch. But it was War of Will who came out to make his rally, and he was badly impeded along with Bodie Express and the hot Toddy horse, Long Range Toddy, as Maximum Security came out and fouled them. Now, of course, the million-dollar question is whether or not War of Will was going to continue on and be effective in this race. And it's a question that nobody could answer, and that's why the stewards took down Maximum Security. It's pretty tough when you're getting ready to make your run and you get fouled. Having said that, there's also an argument that he just wasn't really finishing up, and I think distance is a real question for War of Will, and it's one of the reasons that he's not in my tickets here. I think he ran very well, and he showed that he can sit behind horses, and he's rated before and been effective, but still, is he fast enough in his best races to win this race? That's something that I'm concerned about, and with extra distance, even though it's 16th mile less than the Derby, I don't really want my tickets, especially at a shorter price. The main question, though, is do I want Improbable on my tickets? Now, Improbable got a terrific ride from Irad Ortiz, an absolutely perfect trip in the Kentucky Derby. Now, here he is finishing second to the horse who probably would have been favored, the Derby Omaha Beach. And no disgrace, this is when Jose Ortiz made the right move. He made that early move following Omaha Beach, the horse he had to beat. The problem is he did not finish effectively in that race. Now, while he should have won the Rebel, he wasn't best in this Arkansas Derby, but he still ran very well behind a very good horse in Omaha Beach. But distance has always been the question for him, being a son of City Zip. And he got that perfect trip in the Derby. And, yeah, he may get Mike Smith for this race. And obviously Mike Smith, a great rider. So's Irad Ortiz. And Mike cannot ride this horse better than Irad did in the Kentucky Derby. And I just don't think he finished. I don't think it was the wet track. He ran a fast enough figure. He seemed to be running just fine. Distance really a question for him. And also, it's his third race in 5 weeks. And as the favorite, he'll be on my ticket somewhat defensively. But I think he's vulnerable in what is a race full of some very interesting new shooters, including 2 horses that ran 1-2 in the Lexington back at Keeneland. Back in 1998, a horse came out of a big win in the Lexington to take a very tough trip loss in the Preakness. That was Touch Gold running in Silver Charm. There's no Silver Charms in this year's Preakness. And this horse, Owendale, he may not have been as impressive as Touch Gold, but he was very impressive. 4 wide in the first turn, 3 to 5 wide in the second turn, and just blew by the field. And while it was a fair pace, it wasn't a race that completely fell apart. And I thought Owendale ran an exceptional race. And maybe he's coming into his own, and maybe he's doing so, making one big run, as opposed to those races where he was closer to the pace. And he still ran some decent figures. He ran poorly in the Risen Star, but not running for 2 months. Perhaps he had a bit of an issue. He comes in this Preakness, in my opinion, as one of the horses to beat. And I think another twist of fate, who finished second behind him. He ran well also. He is probably the one horse that will be involved in the early pace, which predicts to be pretty quick in this race, at least honest. He's one that I will be using in this race because, frankly, he's run well in his 2 dirt races. He's arguably a better horse in the dirt than he is on synthetic, even though he had that earlier success on synthetic. He's the one pace runner I'll be using, but I definitely am very interested in Owendale. An interesting player in here for Brad Cox, the trainer of Owendale, is Warrior's Charge. And boy, has he come into his own his last 2 starts. This win at Oaklawn last time was extremely impressive. Now, it came one race after their fantasy. and he ran just over about a half a second slower to the quarter, and he ran a little over 2/3 of a second slower to the half, and a little bit about 2/5 slower to the 3/4. But he finished 1.3 seconds faster than those fillies did that day. He was very, very good and got a big Beyer speed figure, and deservedly so. And he's improving his figures with every single start. I like this horse. I think he's very good. His owner's paid, I think, $150,000 to supplement to the Preakness. The problem I have is his improvement has coincided with him being clear on the front end. And if he's going to get clear on the front end with Javier Castellano, he's going to have to run faster than he ran at Oaklawn to do it, and doing it against a much tougher group. So while he could be a fringe player for me, my infamous fifth choice, this is going to be a very, very tough test for a horse who very well may be coming into his own at the right time. Let's take a look at Bourbon War, and we'll look at him finish second in the Fountain of Youth. Now, I would not particularly bet him off his Fountain of Youth, where he got an excellent trip and ride. I mean, the pace was wicked fast. The rider, Ira Ortiz, saved ground the whole way. He angled out in the stretch. He couldn't catch Code of Honor, and Code of Honor had an even better trip, though you could argue he was close to the pace, and it was a wicked pace that was falling apart. It was his last race, the Florida Derby, where I actually really liked his effort because he was compromised badly by the very slow pace in that race. And despite a wider trip than Code of Honor, who was very skillfully guided to the inside by John Velasquez in the second turn, he actually finished just 3/4 of length behind Code of Honor, who came back and ran very well in the Kentucky Derby. And Bourbon War, a son of Tappet, he looks to me like a horse that should relish the distance, perhaps even more than Code of Honor. So Bourbon War can take advantage of what should be a more contentious pace in here, and he is a major player for me in this year's Preakness. How about Always Smiling, the local darling? This horse has been absolutely terrific down in Maryland this winter. 3 straight big wins and stakes in Maryland. I should say actually 5 straight, 6 straight wins for him. And he showed something in the Federico Tessio. Now, keep in mind, he was 5 cents the dollar, and it wasn't a particularly strong field. But he rated, and his connections found out that he can sit behind horses and still finish, and that's very important. He's still a horse that's going to be forward, and he's going to have to be somewhat forward against a world of different competition he's ever faced before. And being that local horse, he may take a little more play than he should. Now, to be fair, we've seen those local horses do pretty well, like Magic Wisner, Deputed Testimony, and some others like Scrappy T as well in the past. So it won't be surprising when he runs well in this race. He just feels to me like a horse who should be about 15-1 in here, and he'll probably be a somewhat of a fraction of that price, but he's not untalented. How about Win, Win, Win and Signalman? We'll take a look at them finishing second, third, the Bluegrass. We'll start with Signalman. To me, he was on top of a moderate pace on a track that was kind to speed, and he had no finish, and he's never run a race fast enough to win here. I don't see him as a factor whatsoever in this race. Now, Win, Win, Win has a lot of fans. I actually think he's a very good horse as well. I just question whether or not he's going to be effective at longer distances. He had some trouble in this Bluegrass. He steadied around the 3/8 pole, and he was finishing better than anybody. But didn't somebody have to finish in this race? And I just wonder, first of all, he's a horse that continuously gets left. I think he benefits from drawing the far outside post, with nobody outside of him. Maybe he breaks more keenly in here. You can't keep getting left every time you run, especially against tough competition. And I think he's a horse that's going to be better when they cut back in distance. Far and away the best race he ever ran was at 7 furlongs. Why he continues to try his distances? Well, they're big races, big purses, a lot of prestige, so they're taking one more shot. We'll see how he does. I just don't know if he's good enough, especially at the distance. One more horse we'll take a look at is a bit of a wild card coming in here is the 11 Laughing Fox for trainer Steve Asmussen. He's coming off what I thought was a very impressive win in the Oaklawn Invitational just 2 weeks ago at Oaklawn Park, because this was a race where the pace completely held together, and the only horse to make up any ground was Laughing Fox, who was wider than everybody the whole way around the track, 3 to 4 wide in the first turn, out in the middle of the track on the backstretch, and 3 wide in the second turn. This was a very solid effort. The problem is it's still not good enough to be a major factor in this race, and he would need a giant pace to fall apart for him to be effective. And is he better than Bourbon War? Is he better than Owendale? I don't think so. It's also his third start in just 5 weeks as well. But he's an interesting player for a barn that is having one heck of a year. I think this is going to be a very, very fun Preakness. I know that a lot of people aren't that familiar. You obviously don't have Maximum Security. You don't have Country House. You don't have Code of Honor. But what you have is a very interesting and competitive betting race, and one I think we can make money in. Let's take a look at my picks for the Preakness. I'm going to take the 5 Owendale on top. Very thin margin for me between he and Bourbon War. They're my top 2. I'll put Improbable the favorite third, and the number 12, Another Twist of Fate, will be my 4th selection in this year's Preakness. It's a good one. Best way to play it? Oh, yeah. play it through NyraBets. Head on over to NyraBets.com if you're not a member. Use the promo code SPRING19 and you'll bet 200. You'll get 200 free money at NyraBets.com. And once you've signed up for NyraBets, you can get many other things to enjoy. You can play it through NyraBets while you're at Belmont Park. The weather has turned glorious. Come out and join us. Gates open at 10 a.m. 12-race card preceding the Preakness starts at noon. That's at Nyra. Head to Nyra.com for more information. A lot of fun things happening at Belmont Park on Saturday. Also, a 10% winner's bonus. We'll offer it on Friday in the Black Eyed Susan. We'll offer it on Saturday in the Preakness. NyraBets app only. That's the exacta. 10% winner's bonus through NyraBets. Also, the late pick 4. 3 million point hit and split in the late pick 4. That's Saturday, Preakness Day, through NyraBets at Pimlico. Everybody, enjoy this week's Preakness.